UFC Fight Night Rozenstruik versus Gaziev is this Saturday, and for each fight, including the prelims, I'm going to go through a breakdown of each fighter's stats, their recent UFC fight history, the results of 7 different data science prediction models, the weighted prediction model results, my final picks, and then I'll provide you guys with logical, data-driven bets that you can consider, including their probabilities and returns. Do me a favor, and before we get started, please like and subscribe if you find this interesting, informative, or helpful, as it'll help keep me motivated in creating these videos for you all. Running this data and analysis, the prediction models, fight simulations, charts and graphs, and updating the site takes hours every day and week, so I'd really appreciate the support. And thank you all for all of your recent support. I really appreciate it. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. First, let's quickly review our results for this recent fight night. So for UFC Fight Night Moreno versus Royval 2, we ended the night 9 for 12 fights, which is an accuracy of 75%. For the previous 10 events, we're averaging 66%. All-time, we're averaging 68%. All-time pay-per-views, we're averaging 70%. And all-time fight nights, we're averaging 66%. I've went ahead and updated the format for you guys so that I reduce stat redundancy and make advantages and disadvantages easier to follow throughout the video. Fighter 1 will be on the left column and Fighter 2 will be on the right column. Green cells are advantages, red cells are disadvantages, and yellow cells are where fighters are tied. The stats that are on the left side that are in red colored font are generally inverse, where the lower the number, the more of an advantage the fighter has. Age could be an exception to this because older fighters have more experience, but then younger fighters could have a better physical longevity, so it's hard to tell who has an advantage with age, but I've kind of went with if you're the younger fighter, that's the advantage, just based on what we've seen in the UFC. I hope you guys like the new format. Please feel free to comment any improvements that you think I could make. I really appreciate constructive criticism and feedback and continuously improving the content I provide for you all. Alright, I've kept you guys waiting long enough. Let's go ahead and get started. So, stepping into the octagon, we have Josephine Knutson and Julia Polastri. Knutson stands at 63 inches tall. She has a 3-inch reach disadvantage compared to Polastri's 63-inch reach. At 28 years of age, Knutson brings a blend of experience and agility reflected in her strikes landed per minute rate of 3.73 and a striking accuracy of 52%. She has pretty good grappling defense, but no submission average. Polastri, 3 years younger at 25, boasts a higher strikes landed per minute rate of 6.19, indicating a more aggressive approach in striking. Her striking accuracy matches Knutson's at 52%, suggesting that while she throws more, she lands with similar precision. In grappling, Polastri's number falls short with a takedown average of just 0.62 and a takedown defense at 42%, which might expose vulnerabilities against a grappling-focused opponent. Looking at Josephine Knutson's fight history, she's on a winning streak with 3 unanimous decision victories. Notably, her fight against Marnik Mann showed her striking dominance with 81 significant strikes. Against Isis Verbeek, she saw a blend of striking and grappling with 53 strikes and even a takedown. And in her bout with Yidam Xiao, Knutson demonstrated her control on the ground with 4 takedowns. Her consistent performance across these fights illustrates a well-rounded skill set capable of adapting to different opponents. On the other hand, Julia Polastri shows a mixed record in her last 3 fights. Her most recent win against Patricia Alujas with 84 strikes and a takedown indicates her capability to control the fight both on her feet and on the ground. However, the loss to Jasmine Jasudavicius, where Polastri landed 70 strikes but was taken down 4 times, could point out potential areas for improvement in her ground defense. Now, unfortunately, there wasn't enough data available on these two to put them through the data science comparative prediction models. The odd probabilities are indicating Knutson will have a 66% chance of victory over Julia Polastri, who will have a 34% probability. Given her striking accuracy, high defensive capabilities, and her track record of maintaining control whether the fight is standing or on the ground, it's likely that she may seek to exploit Polastri's lower takedown defense. I predict that Knutson will secure the win through a unanimous decision. Her ability to adapt and utilize her striking and grappling interchangeably will likely see her accumulating points over the rounds, leading to a victory by a judge's decision. This fight analysis paints a picture of a highly skilled bout with Knutson likely to control the pace and the location of the fight, using her experience and versatility to navigate through Polastri's aggressive striking approach. In the next fight, we have Yaya versus Brendan Marote. Yaya is a seasoned fighter at 29 years old with a height and reach of 69 inches and 73 inches respectively. His stats show a strong grappling game with an average of 1 takedown per match and a good takedown accuracy. While his striking game seems less effective with 2.87 strikes landed per minute at a 46% accuracy, his submission average per fight stands at 1, indicating he is a threat on the ground. His defense, while lower in striking at 37%, is quite skilled at defending against takedowns, with a 42% success rate. Facing him across the octagon is the younger contender Brendan Marote, also standing at 69 inches tall, but with a slightly shorter reach of 70 inches. Marote's striking is more productive, landing 3 significant strikes per minute with good accuracy. However, he is lacking on grappling attempts, and we need to see how his takedown defense really is. Yaya's last outing in the UFC saw him losing to Trevor Peek at UFC 294. In this fight, Yaya landed 43 significant strikes and completed 1 takedown, but failed to secure any submissions. Peek, on the other hand, landed more strikes and dominated the ground game with 4 takedowns. This fight went to a unanimous decision, suggesting that while Yaya is competitive, he could improve his striking defense and control against wrestlers. Marote's most recent UFC appearance was a quick defeat at the hands of Terrence McKinney at UFC Fight Night. Marote only managed 1 strike and no ground game before being knocked out by a knee. This brief encounter reveals Marote's vulnerability to powerful, decisive strikes and highlights an area where he could focus on his defense, especially during the early moments of a fight. So the prediction models present a mixed bag with varying degrees of support for each fighter. The odds probability and neural network model give Yaya a slight edge, while the logistic regression and support vector machine models favor Marote. Interestingly, the random forest model heavily favors Yaya, potentially reflecting his historical performance and specific fighting attributes that the model values. Meanwhile, Marote dominated the 1,000 fight simulations, indicating that under particular conditions, he can be seen as the likely winner. When you take all the results from the prediction models and weigh them together, it lands at an even 50-50 split, which paints a picture of an incredibly balanced matchup where either fighter has as good of a chance as the other to emerge victorious. Considering all of the data, I predict Yaya will win with a 52% probability. His proven grappling ability and perfect takedown accuracy suggests that he'll be looking to take the fight to the ground. Given his ability to land significant strikes and average 1 submission per fight, a submission victory seems pretty probable. However, given the close odds and Marote's striking accuracy, a decision victory for Yaya is also a strong possibility, especially if he can successfully implement his strategy and control the fight's pace and location. In summary, Yaya's experience and ground game may just tip the scales in his favor in what's expected to be a tightly contested matchup. In the next fight, we have Abdul Karim Al-Salwadi versus Loic Radzhabov. Abdul Karim Al-Salwadi steps into the octagon with a height of 68 inches. Both fighters have the same reach. At 28 years old, Al-Salwadi brings to the table a significant strike rate of 4.6 per minute, although with a lower accuracy of only 28%. His grappling stats show an average of 1 takedown per fight with a 16% accuracy, indicating a willingness to engage on the ground, but perhaps lacking in execution. His takedown defense is currently untested, suggesting an area that Loic may look to exploit. His opponent, Loic, stands taller at 71 inches. At 33 years old, he has a wealth of experience and boasts a superior striking accuracy of 42% at a rate of 2.6 per minute. Loic's grappling is particularly noteworthy, with an average of 7.3 takedowns per fight and an impressive 52% accuracy, complemented by a solid takedown defense of 50%. Al-Salwadi's last fight saw him secure a victory over George Hardwick. He demonstrated a high work rate with 69 significant strikes and managed to execute a takedown. This performance, which led to a unanimous decision win, showcased his ability to control the pace and pace of a fight, although the lack of finish may point to areas of improvement in power and submission skills. Loic, on the other hand, shows a mixed record in his recent fights. His last win against Esteban Ribovics featured a dominant grappling display with 11 takedowns. However, his loss to Matus Rebecki, where he suffered 2 knockdowns and was outstruck significantly, reveals potential vulnerabilities in his striking defense and chin that Al-Salwadi might look to target. Unfortunately, similarly to the first fight, there wasn't enough data available on these two guys to put them through the data science comparative prediction models. The odd probabilities are giving El Sawadi the edge with a 57% chance of victory. This suggests that there's a overall confidence in his ability to leverage his high striking volume and potential to outwork Loic over the distance of a fight. His high output in striking and the ability to take the fight to the ground, even with lower accuracy, suggests that he may be able to control the fight and where it takes place. Loic's grappling, strength, and experience are notable, but El Sawadi's untested takedown defense could be the key to this fight. If he can keep the fight standing, El Sawadi might outstrike Loic to a decision win. However, Loic can capitalize on any grappling openings, so it could swing the other way as well. Therefore, the prediction really hinges on El Sawadi's ability to defend takedowns and maintain his pace throughout the fight. Should he succeed in doing so, we can anticipate a victory for El Sawadi by a unanimous decision with the potential for a finish if he can exploit the striking vulnerability shown in Loic's recent loss. In the next fight, we have Vinicius Oliveira versus Yanis Gimori. Both fighters stand at 69 inches tall. Oliveira has a slight reach advantage and is 1 year younger than his opponent. Oliveira's high volume of significant strikes per minute at 9.56 with a 49% accuracy points to a fighter who is aggressive and precise in his stand-up game. Yanis's volume of strikes per minute is significantly lower at 2.27, and he absorbs a higher rate of strikes per minute at 4.22, which may raise concerns about his striking defense. Oliveira's most recent fight result was a win against Victor Madrigal, where he showcased his striking power, landing a knockdown and finishing the fight with punches in the first round. This performance really underlines his finishing ability and suggests confidence in his striking ability heading into the fight against Yanis. Yanis's last fight saw him suffer a loss to William Gomis. Despite landing a decent number of strikes, Yanis was outstruck and eventually finished with a kick. This fight exposes some potential vulnerabilities, particularly in dealing with fighters who can match his pace and power. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough data available on these two guys either to put them through the data science comparative prediction models. This happens pretty frequently with the prelim fights or the early fights. The odd probabilities are giving Oliveira a 61% probability of victory, indicating a belief in his ability to control the fight and utilize his striking advantage effectively against Yanis. His impressive strike rate per minute and the power demonstrated in his last fight suggests that he may look to keep the fight standing, leveraging his reach and volume to outstrike Yanis. Given Yanis' recent performance where he was susceptible to strikes, Oliveira may find opportunities to land significant blows. While both fighters have shown that they don't rely on takedowns, Oliveira's complete takedown defense could nullify any attempts from Yanis, should he choose to change his approach. With these factors in mind, the likely method of victory for Oliveira is probably going to be a KO/TKO, capitalizing on his striking advantage. Yanis will need to improve his defense and find a way to navigate Oliveira's volume to stand a chance. However, given Oliveira's recent display of finishing ability, the prediction leans towards a victory for Oliveira by knockout, potentially within the early rounds as he establishes his rhythm and targets Yanis' defenses. In the next fight, we have Christian Leroy Duncan versus Claudio Riviero. Christian Leroy Duncan stands an inch taller and holds a 2-inch reach advantage over Claudio Riviero. Duncan, at 28 years old, showcases an impressive significant strike rate per minute of 5.06 with a higher striking accuracy of 59%, indicating his precision and volume in the stand-up game. In contrast, Riviero, at 31 years old, presents a slightly lower strike landed per minute rate of 4.6, but he absorbs about 4.22 strikes per minute, which hints at a potential defensive gap. Both fighters have not shown a reliance for takedowns in their fights, which indicates that they prefer striking. Duncan's most recent fight saw him winning against Denis Tululin with a dominant display of 65 strikes and a knockout via punches, reflecting his power and capacity to finish fights. However, his loss to Armen Petrosian in a unanimous decision where he landed 59 strikes suggests that while he can maintain a high output, he might be vulnerable to strategic opponents. Ribeiro's recent UFC fights show a mixed record. He's had both knockout losses and wins. His last loss against Roman Kopylov, where he was outstruck and finished with a kick, might expose his susceptibility to well-placed strikes. Yet, his victory over Joseph Holmes, landing 37 strikes and securing a takedown, displays his ability to blend striking with grappling effectively. The predictive models overall indicate a favor toward Duncan, with odds ranging from 51% to a high of 75% chance of victory depending on which model you look at, suggesting a confidence in his striking ability and overall fight game. The neural network model significantly deviates though, giving Duncan a low chance of victory. When all of the predictive models are weighed together, they give Duncan a 59% probability of winning, reflecting a consistent belief across various statistical measures in his advantage over Riviero, taking into account factors such as striking, efficiency, defense, and fight history. So, after considering all of this presented data, my final prediction is that Christian Leroy Duncan will win with a 64% probability. Duncan's superior striking accuracy and defensive measures, coupled with his demonstrated knockout power, suggest that he is likely to control the stand-up exchanges. If Duncan can maintain his striking volume while managing Riviero's return fire, he is likely to find success on his feet. Given Riviero's vulnerability to precise strikes, as evidenced in his fight history, Duncan might secure another win via knockout. While grappling may not be a significant factor in this fight, Duncan's takedown defense should serve him well under any attempt by Riviero to bring the fight to the ground. Therefore, the prediction leans towards a victory for Duncan by KO, TKO, capitalizing on his striking strengths and Riviero's defensive weaknesses. In the next fight, we have Ayman Zahabi versus Javid Basharat, and take a look at the differences in advantages and disadvantages. That's why I really like the change in format. Ayman Zahabi and Javid Basharat are nearly identical in height, but Zahabi at 36 brings more experience to this fight than the 28-year-old Basharat. Zahabi throws a moderate number of strikes per minute with a decent accuracy, but absorbs more strikes than he lands, suggesting potential defensive holes. Basharat, on the other hand, boasts a high volume of strikes per minute with an impressive accuracy and defense, indicating a more aggressive and efficient stand-up game. Zahabi's recent UFC fight shows a mix of outcomes with wins by knockout and decisions, but also losses. His most recent win over Aori Quilang by KO demonstrates his power, while the decision loss to Vince Morales hints at potential gaps when facing technical strikers. Basharat's fighting history in the UFC reveals an undefeated streak with a series of unanimous decisions and a submission victory, showcasing his versatility and endurance. His ability to maintain a high pace throughout fights and secure takedowns suggests a well-rounded skill set. Geez, take a look at those one-sided predictive model results. The predictive model results largely favor Basharat, with odds ranging from 53% to a commanding 94% chance of victory, depending on which model you're looking at. This reflects confidence in his striking, his defensive capabilities, and his grappling skill set. So when you combine all of those predictive models, you get a 66% win probability for Basharat, which is a significant edge over Zahabi. This combined assessment factors in striking efficiency, defensive acumen, and recent performance history. Considering all of the available data, my prediction is that Javid Basharat will emerge victorious with a 75% probability. Basharat's higher striking volume, precision, and defensive skills are likely to control the pace of the fight. If he maintains his performance level and utilizes his grappling ability, a decision win is a strong possibility. However, given his finishing ability in his previous fights, there's also a fair chance for a stoppage by KO or TKO, or even a submission. Zahabi's experience could pose challenges, but Basharat's momentum and multifaceted arsenal make him the probable winner in this matchup. In the next fight, we have Joel Alvarez versus Ludovic Klein. Joel Alvarez towers at 75 inches, giving him a notable height advantage over Ludovic Klein's 67 inches. Alvarez, who is 30 years old, has a reach of 77 inches, which could play a significant role in controlling the distance in the fight. His significant strikes per minute stands at 3.65, with a striking accuracy of 46%, indicating an active and fairly precise stand-up game. Defensively, Alvarez has a 50% striking defense, but shows a potential vulnerability with a takedown defense of only 11%. On the flip side, Klein is 29 years old, has a slightly shorter reach of 72 inches, but outshines with a higher significant strike accuracy of 54% and a better takedown defense at 83%. He also brings to the octagon a more solid grappling game with a 1.52 takedown average and a 45% takedown accuracy. Alvarez's last 5 fights in the UFC show a pattern of victories primarily by submission, which indicates he has a dangerous ground game. His recent win against Mark Diakis via submission underscores his proficiency in this area. However, his loss to Arman Tsarukyan reveals a potential gap in his striking defense as he absorbed a large number of strikes and failed to secure a takedown. Klein's recent fight history is a mix of wins and a draw, with victories often coming by decisions, which demonstrates his ability to go the distance of the fight. His fight against Ignacio Bahamondes shows a balanced attack with significant strikes and takedowns, hinting at a well-rounded skill set. However, his loss to Nate Landwehr via submission could be a concern against a submission specialist like Alvarez. Various predictive models give mixed outcomes for this fight. For Alvarez, the odd probabilities in the neural network model show a higher chance of winning, while Klein seems to have the edge in the logistic regression and support vector machines models. The range in these predictions indicates that the fight could really go either way depending on which fighter plays to their strengths effectively. The model-weighted predictions present a near-even split, with Alvarez slightly edging out Klein at 51% to 49%. This close prediction implies a fight that could be heavily influenced by very small factors, such as Alvarez's reach advantage or Klein's striking precision. Considering the statistics and predictive models, my final prediction is that Joel Alvarez will emerge victorious with a 58% probability. Given his history of wins by submission and Klein's vulnerability in this area, as seen in his loss to Nate Landwehr, the method of victory for Alvarez is likely to be by submission. Alvarez will need to utilize his reach to manage the striking exchanges and look for opportunities to bring Klein to the mat. If Alvarez can implement his game plan and exploit Klein's weaker takedown defense, a submission victory seems pretty reasonable. However, given the fight's close odds, if it goes to the judges, Alvarez's ability to control the fight with his grappling could also lead to a decision victory. Next fight, we have Raul Rosas Jr. versus Ricky Turcios. This fight was supposed to happen this past UFC Fight Night. However, Raul Rosas Jr. was reportedly suffering an illness and the fight had to be canceled. Thankfully, they rescheduled it just 1 week after to this event. Both fighters stand at an equal height of 69 inches, but it's in the reach where we begin to see the distinction, where Turcios enjoys a 4-inch reach advantage at 71 inches. At 19 years old, Rosas Jr. is significantly younger, which could lend him the advantage of agility and speed, whereas Turcios at 30 has the edge of experience. The statistics reveal a contrasting fighting style as well. Rosas Jr. delivers fewer significant strikes per minute at only 1.28 compared to Turcios' way more attractive 5.08 per minute. However, Rosas Jr. shows a higher grappling tendency with an average of 3.57 takedowns and a notable submission average of 1.8. Turcios, on the other hand, has a lower takedown average and submission average, which suggests a preference for striking over grappling. Both fighters have areas of defensive strength and weaknesses, but Rosas Jr. has a 0% takedown defense, which could be a vulnerability against a more experienced opponent. I honestly don't think he has enough experience yet to where the stats can fully capture his capabilities. So he might actually have decent takedown defense, it just hasn't really been tested yet. Raul Rosas Jr.'s recent fight history illuminates his resilience and adaptability inside the octagon. Despite a loss to Christian Rodriguez, where he was outperformed in significant strikes and grappling, Rosas Jr. has shown his capability to secure wins through diverse methods, from a neck crank submission against Jay Perrin to a unanimous decision over Mando Gutierrez. His ability to finish fights both on the ground and through the judges' scorecards speaks to a very well-rounded skill set. Despite 2 losses, Turcios has demonstrated tenacity, with significant strike counts outstanding in every fight, particularly against Boston Salmon, where he landed an impressive 110 strikes. His grappling appears to be less of a factor, though he does show capability with 2 takedowns in his win against Brady Highstand. The models show a spread of outcomes with no clear consensus. However, the odd probabilities favor Rosas Jr. at 69%, which might reflect his versatile approach in fights. The logistic regression and support vector machine models hover around the 50% mark, indicating an evenly matched contest, whereas the gradient boosting model heavily favors Turcios with an 88% win probability, likely due to his higher activity rate and striking. Now let's take a look at the collective weight of these models, which leans towards Turcios with a 55% win probability. This suggests that when all factors are balanced, Turcios' experience in striking might slightly tip the scales in his favor. So the models are actually pointing towards the underdog in this one, and it's also important to note that Raul Rosas Jr. is coming off of an illness of some sort and has only 1 week to recover from that. so this is a pretty interesting prediction and possibly a good value bet. However, I'm going to go the opposite way from the prediction models. I think that given Rosas Jr.'s youth, his grappling acumen, and his submission average, I think he's going to employ a strategy focused on takedowns and control on the ground. I don't think that the models are doing him justice in capturing his full skill set and his experience, since he's pretty relatively new to the UFC and his career is just developing. So despite Turcios' striking advantage, I predict that Rosas Jr. will have a 62% probability of winning. Considering the striking defense and ground control of Rosas Jr., I foresee a victory by decision. His ability to mix up his fighting approach and execute a strategic ground game could see him outpoint Turcios over the duration of the fight, particularly if he can manage the distance and employ his grappling effectively. It could also be a submission if he's able to outmaneuver Turcios' striking and get him to an advantageous spot on the mat. Alright, for the next fight, we have Matt Schnell versus Steve Erceg. Both fighters share the same height at 68 inches. Schnell, the more experienced fighter at 34, has an extensive reach of 70 inches, which could provide him a slight advantage in the striking department. He lands an average of 4.24 significant strikes per minute, but with a lower striking accuracy of 39%. His striking defense is notable at 55%, and he averages 0.63 takedowns per 15 minutes, although with a moderate takedown accuracy of 44%. On the other side, we have Erceg, who is the younger fighter at 28 years old. He matches Schnell's reach and brings a slightly higher significant strike rate per minute of 4.27 and a better striking accuracy of 48%. His striking defense is less at 49%, but he excels in grappling with an impressive 2 average takedowns per 15 minutes and a great takedown defense of 77%. Schnell's last fights reveal a mix of wins and losses. His victory against Sumaderji via triangle choke submission stands out, showcasing his submission skills. However, his losses, particularly the knockout by Mateus Nicolau, it highlights the vulnerabilities that can be exploited by a very powerful striker. The overturned fight against Rogerio Bontorin, where Schnell landed a good number of strikes, demonstrates his ability and his potential to control a fight when he can keep it on the feet. Erceg's fight record is less extensive, but shows consistent performance with 2 unanimous decision victories. He displayed a balanced approach in his fights, landing significant strikes and securing takedowns against both Alessandro Costa and David Vorak, suggesting a well-rounded skill set that can adapt to different fight scenarios. Most of the prediction models are leaning towards Erceg. The odd probability gives him a 72% chance of victory over Schnell's 28%. Models like the logistic regression and neural network also are leaning towards Erceg, whereas the linear regression model shows kind of a closer contest. These models reflect Erceg's solid performance and potential for growth inside the octagon. When combining all of the predictive models, Erceg emerges with a statistical advantage of 59% over Schnell's 41%. Erceg's recent win and his ability to fight well both standing up and on the ground seem to give him the edge in the eyes of the model. This tells us that Erceg's been improving and might just have the right mix of skills to come out on top in this fight. My final prediction does lean towards Steve Erceg with a calculated probability of 68%. Given Erceg's robust takedown defense and the ability to maintain control on the ground, as seen in his previous fights, a victory by decision is the most probable outcome. Erceg will likely use his balanced striking and grappling to control the pace of the fight, scoring points with the judges. While Schnell has the experience and a notable submission game, Erceg's defensive skills and recent form suggest he can neutralize Schnell's threats and secure a win on the scorecards. In the next fight, we have Umar Nurmagomedov versus Bekzat Alkon. Umar Nurmagomedov stands at 68 inches tall and he has a 69-inch reach. He's 28 years old and he brings a pretty impressive record to this fight with a significant strike rate per minute of 4.85 and a remarkable striking accuracy of 70%. His defense is equally notable with a 75% striking defense and outstanding takedown defense of 100%. Nurmagomedov also showcases his grappling talent with an average of 4.28 takedowns per 15 minutes. Bekzat Alkon is slightly shorter at 67 inches, but he is younger at 26 years old. There's not really much stats out there on him. Nurmagomedov's recent fight history is a testament to his dominance. His latest bout saw him win by knockout against Raoni Barcelos, demonstrating his true power. Other wins, including submissions over Nate Maness and Sergey Morozov, highlight his versatile skill set, capable of ending fights both on the feet and on the ground. This will actually be Bekzat Almakhan's UFC debut. He's previously fought on the Octagon promotion, UAE Warriors, and Bushido, Kazakhstan. His record is 14 wins and 1 loss, with most coming by knockout and even a submission victory. Unfortunately, because of the lack of data on Bekzat Almakhan, there just wasn't enough data to put them through the data science comparative prediction models. Now, the odd probabilities are giving Umar Nurmagomedov an 84% probability of victory, which reflects the expectation that he will control the fight in all aspects. Considering his proven track record, I predict Nurmagomedov's victory will likely come through a submission. His history of successful rear naked chokes and the high rate of takedowns suggests that once the fight goes to the ground, Nurmagomedov will find a way to secure a tap from Almakhan. However, we can't entirely rule out a knockout victory given his recent performance against Barcelos. In summary, I anticipate that Nurmagomedov's superior experience, striking accuracy, and grappling expertise will guide him to a decisive win in this matchup. In the next fight, we have Eric Anders versus Jamie Pickett. Eric Anders and Jimmy Pickett are set to face off, with Anders standing at 73 inches tall, just an inch shorter than Pickett being 74 inches. Anders is the older fighter at 36 years old. He brings significant experience into the octagon with a reach of 75 inches. He lands an average of 3.56 significant strikes per minute with a striking accuracy of 47%. His defensive game is solid with a striking defense at 50% and an impressive takedown defense of 79%. Pickett is slightly younger at 35 years old. He has an 80-inch reach, which could play a huge factor in this fight, given that advantage. His significant strikes per minute come in at 2.8 with a nearly comparable striking accuracy of 48%. His takedown defense sits at 69%, indicating a good but slightly less impenetrable defense compared to Anders. Eric Anders' last 5 fights show mixed results with 2 wins and 3 losses. His win against Kyle Daukaus stands out, where he secured a knockout and he displayed a striking power. However, his losses to Marc-Andre Barriault and Jun Yong Park by decision show areas where he can be outworked, especially if it goes the distance of the fight. The loss to Andre Muniz by submission does also point to a potential vulnerability on the ground that Pickett might look to exploit. On the other side, we have Jamie Pickett. His recent fights have been challenging, with 4 losses and only 1 win. His most recent fight against Josh Fremd ended in a unanimous decision loss, demonstrating his ability to go the distance, but also indicating areas for improvement. The losses to Bo Nickel and Dennis Tululin, both of them being by submission, does kind of expose a weakness in grappling that Anders could take advantage of. The predictive models show a clear preference towards Anders, with odd probabilities of 73% and logistic regression model favoring him at 82%. However, there is some variation, as the 1000 fight simulation surprisingly favor Pickett at 67%. This divergence could suggest that while Anders is the favorite, there might be a small chance that Pickett could pull off the upset. So when we take all of the models into account, Anders is favored with a 57% chance of victory, which suggests that the fight could be kind of closer than some of the individual models are predicting. It takes into account the varying factors from both fighters' past performances, their skill sets, and it indicates that while Anders has the edge, the fight could have some competitive moments. I'm going to add a bit more confidence to the prediction and say that my final prediction is that Eric Anders will secure the victory with a 68% probability. Analyzing his striking power and his successful takedown defense, it's reasonable to foresee Anders winning by knockout or a technical knockout. His ability to land significant strikes with precision, coupled with experience, could enable him to find the opening he needs in order to finish this fight. However, Pickett's reach advantage and his resilience shouldn't be completely underestimated, and while the odds are leaning towards Anders, Pickett's recent experiences in the octagon could give him what he needs to be able to pull off the upset. In the next fight, we have Alex Perez versus Muhammad Mokaev. Alex Perez and Muhammad Mokaev bring contrasting experiences and styles into the octagon. Perez is 31 years old, he stands 66 inches tall, and he has a 65-inch reach. His stats show a solid strikes landed per minute rate of 4.67 and a striking accuracy of 48%. His grappling is highlighted by a 2.84 takedown average and a 77% takedown defense. Mokaev is younger at 23 years old, and he is an inch taller. He He boasts a longer reach of 70 inches and his strikes landed per minute rate is lower at 1.12, but he makes up with it with a higher striking accuracy at 51%. Notably, his takedown average is exceptional at 6.47, and both of these fighters have the same submission average at 1.3. Mokaev absorbs much fewer strikes per minute though at 1.19 compared to Alex Perez's 3.14. Perez's fight history is a mix of highs and lows. His recent fights include a notable win against Jussier Formiga via knockout and a submission victory over Jordan Espinoza. However, his losses, particularly the submission to Davison Figueiredo, show a vulnerability that Mokaev could potentially exploit given his great grappling ability. Mokaev, on the other hand, his recent record is very impressive with a series of wins, including multiple submissions and a unanimous decision. His victory over Tim Elliott with an arm triangle choke and another submission over Malcolm Gordon underscore his ground game threat, which could pose a significant challenge to Perez. Now, the predictive models are somewhat split, but generally they're leaning towards Mokaev, with odd probabilities at 69% and the logistics regression model favoring him as well. However, the models like the neural network model give a surprising advantage to Perez at 73%. This contrast in prediction suggests that while Mokaev is the favorite, there is significant respect for Perez's abilities in the models. Combining the insights from all of the models, we see a tighter contest with Perez holding a slight edge at 58% over Mokaev's 42%. This gives a more nuanced and complete view, suggesting that Perez's experience in striking volume is also being considered alongside Mokaev's significant grappling skills. However, given Alex Perez's recent losses and Mokaev's significant grappling ability and his momentum, I'm going to go opposite of the models here and say that Muhammad Mokaev will win with a 61% probability. Given his track records of submissions and his aggressive takedown strategy, I could see Mokaev looking to take the fight to the ground immediately. I could see him getting the submission because of that, especially with Perez's past susceptibility to those kind of finishes. However, Perez's striking and takedown defense shouldn't be completely underestimated here. His ability to keep the fight standing could lead to a decision win in his favor. But with Mokaev's youth and his dynamic skill set, I foresee him being able to close that distance and secure the win on the mat. In the next fight, we have our co-main event, Vitor Petrino versus Tyson Pedro. Both fighters bring distinctive fighting styles and physical attributes to the octagon. Petrino is 74 inches tall with a 77-inch reach. He's the younger fighter at 26 years old. He delivers a solid rate of 3.07 significant strikes per minute with a 48% accuracy, which showcases a balance between output and precision. Petrino's grappling stats are impressive, averaging 4.15 takedowns per 15 minutes with a 70% accuracy, suggesting a pretty strong wrestling base. His takedown defense is equally impressive at 68%, hinting at his ability to control where the fight takes place. On the flip side, we have Tyson Pedro, who stands an inch taller at 75 inches and a slight reach advantage with 79 inches. Despite being older at 32 years old, he outshines with a striking rate of 3.11 significant strikes per minute and a higher striking accuracy of 61%. His striking defense is also superior at 54%. However, Pedro's grappling stats pale in comparison with a lower takedown average and accuracy and a takedown defense of 52%. Looking at Petrino's 5 most recent fights, we see an impressive winning streak. His victories come from a mix of knockouts and decisions, which highlights his versatility and his ability to either end fights quickly or go the distance of the fight. Notably, Petrino exhibits a balance between striking and grappling, securing several takedowns across these fights while also maintaining a consistent striking output. His ability to finish fights both on the feet and the ground makes him a dual threat. Pedro's fight history, on the other hand, is a bit more mixed with 2 losses in his last 5 fights. His wins, however, are all by knockout, demonstrating significant striking power. His last fight went to a decision, which may suggest an ability to go the distance when necessary. Despite his losses, his performance indicates a fighter with finishing capabilities while standing up. The predictive models present a fascinating array of outcomes. The odd probabilities heavily favor Petrino at 71%, while the various statistic models such as logistic regression and random forest offer a more conservative estimate around the 55 to 67% range. Interestingly, the neural network model significantly differs, showing a strong preference for Pedro at 73%. The 1000 fight simulations also lean heavily towards Petrino with an 84% success rate, which might reflect his all-around skill set and recent fight momentum. When weighing all of the predictions out from the models, we see that Petrino is favored with a 58% probability of winning. This collective assessment takes into account his striking, grappling, and fight history, suggesting that while the fight is competitive, Petrino has the statistical edge. I'm going to add some more confidence to that prediction and say that Vitor Petrino will emerge victorious with a 67% probability. Given his strong takedown average and defense, along with solid striking foundation, it's likely that Petrino will control the pace and the location of this fight. Taking into account Tyson Pedro's striking power but lower grappling stats, Petrino's path to victory seems to be through a mix of takedowns and ground control, possibly seeking a submission. However, Pedro's knockout power can't be completely discounted, and Petrino will need to be wary of this threat. Ultimately, I anticipate Petrino utilizing his grappling advantage, leading to the submission victory, capitalizing on any mistakes Pedro makes on the ground. In the next fight, we have our main event, Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Shamil Gaziev. Rozenstruik stands at 74 inches tall and brings a wealth of experience at 35 years old, coupled with a reach of 78 inches. With 2.81 significant strikes per minute at a 45% accuracy, Rozenstruik demonstrates a methodical approach to striking, opting for power over volume. Defensively, he has a takedown defense of 73%, but both of these fighters have a clear preference for stand-up engagements. Shamil Gaziev, just an inch taller at 76 inches and slightly younger at 34 years old, boasts a similar reach. However, Gaziev's striking stats are off the charts, landing an impressive 6.19 significant strikes per minute with a 51% accuracy. This suggests not just an aggressive style, but a pretty effective one as well. Rozenstruik's recent fight history is a bit mixed with 2 wins and 3 losses. His victories come via knockout, which underscores his reputation as a knockout artist. However, his losses, including 1 by submission and 2 by decision, suggest potential vulnerabilities when the fight goes the distance or to the ground. Gaziev, on the other hand, is on a winning streak with both of his recent fights ending in emphatic victories, one by knockout and the other one by submission. These performances portray a fighter who's not just winning, but doing so by finishing his opponents, which is a critical factor in fight momentum and confidence. The predictive models paint a pretty consistent picture, with the odds pointing towards Gaziev at 57%. This sentiment is echoed across the prediction models, with the support vectors machine model showing an overwhelming confidence in Gaziev winning at 91%. The 1000 fight simulations present a closer scenario, with Rozenstruik winning 56% of the simulated fights, indicating that when variability is introduced, Rozenstruik's power could be a determining factor. When aggregating the predictions, Gaziev is favored to win with a 63% chance of victory. The models seem to value his higher strike rate and recent finishing ability, suggesting that the fight could be decided by Gaziev's aggressive and effective striking. However, given the way that fights can go in this division and Rozenstruik's power, I'm going to knock that confidence down a little bit and say that Shamil Gaziev has a 58% probability of winning. Gaziev's exceptional striking volume and accuracy are likely to put Rozenstruik on the defense. While Rozenstruik has the power to end any fight with a single blow, Gaziev's recent performances and unblemished takedown defense point to a fighter who can dictate the pace and the location of the fight. Also, given Rozenstruik's susceptibility to being outstruck and submitted in recent fights, and Gaziev's demonstrated ability to finish fights standing or on the ground, I predict Gaziev will secure a victory. The method of victory could very well be a TKO, considering Rozenstruik's tendency to be involved in striking battles and Gaziev's high strike rate. However, Rozenstruik's power is a wild card that can't be completely dismissed, and if Gaziev isn't careful, he could find himself on the wrong end of a fight-ending punch. But with Gaziev's current momentum, a TKO seems like the most probable method of victory for him. And that concludes all of the fights for this Saturday. Here are the potential bets that I think might be worthwhile to consider based on the prediction model strengths and the unanimous predictions, along with their odds, the final probabilities that we discussed in this video, which can be found in the result column, and the returns for the moneyline bets based on those odds. I really want to thank you all for watching, and if you made it to the end of this video, I really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe, as it'll help keep me motivated in creating these videos. Running this data and analysis and the prediction models and the charts and the graphs take hours every day and week, so I really appreciate the support that you guys give. See you all in the next one.